Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Left Face. My name is Adam Gillard. I am your co-host. I am here with Dick Wilkinson. How you doing, Dick?
I'm doing great, Adam. Good morning.
Good morning. Man, it has been another busy couple days in the news. It's been a constant onslaught since this administration took over. Every day waking up to something new. But last night we went to bed with some extra fresh news where yesterday we decided to commandeer an oil tanker that it's still coming out who the flag was flying and things like that.
Yeah, so I said I had some comments on this story.
Yeah. So tell me what you found out about this oil tanker that we now own.
Yeah, so the ship itself is right now being reported as being part of what they call the ghost fleet of ships that tends to move between sanctioned countries, moving raw goods, commodities, oil, and food and things from one sanctioned place to another secretly, right? And so the belief is that this ship was an oil tanker that doesn't fly with a flag, is not properly registered, and that it was most likely taking oil to China. And Venezuelan oil has been embargoed for like 6 or 7 years now, since the first Trump administration. The embargo, or the sanctions stayed in place throughout the Biden administration. And the seizure is an extension of those oil sanctions on Venezuela. Mm-hmm. So from a legal perspective, we were like, hey, when's the international community going to get upset about blowing up boats? Well, they're not going to get upset about this because the sanctions have been recognized for years now. So taking the boat and even seizing the oil is all legit. From a international law perspective.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So with that, like, what happens to the oil? I know Trump made the comment, like, we just keep it.
That they're gonna roll that bad boy up to Houston and pump it. It's going to a refinery. It's on its way now, I'm sure. So.
And this was a few days after Trump made threats to the Venezuelan president.
Yes.
Where he made some threats that change was coming.
Leave the country now, or it's going to be bad. Right.
Yeah.
Now the backstory to that's definitely worth mentioning because it happened a long time ago. Yeah. Was the Maduro lost his election. Now here's a little crazy for you here. He lost his election, and everybody said, you have to stop being the president, and then he didn't. Yeah. And there's a story that's very similar like that in recent American history, right? I've heard that story. But it went differently here. The one here, the president did eventually leave, on time. Even I say eventually, left on time, right? Yeah, right. It was a little kerfuffle, but he left on time. But Maduro did not. He said, you know what? I'm just not going to leave. I'm going to stay in the mansion, and I'm going to keep telling people what to do, and we're going to see how it goes down. Yeah. And that's what he did. And so Maduro is an illegitimate leader of the country right now. He lost the election and stayed in power.
Well, wouldn't he just be a dictator then?
Yes. He's a dictator that has the military behind him to be able to stay in power, right? Yeah. So that's, again, why Trump has used some of the tactics he's used is because these are to try and get the military to turn against him, right? Like, hey, if we're going to attack you militarily, you're going to lose some of your power. If we start destroying your ships or destroying your bases on land, hey, you general officer, you're not going to be in charge of anything anymore if we blew it all up, So, if we threaten your power, then you don't have it to give to Maduro. So that's the rhetoric angle. I'm not saying that the missions are equaling that outcome, but the language and the messaging is trying to equal that outcome. Yeah. So, yeah.
So what's has Venezuela said anything? So this isn't even a Venezuelan ship. It was just in Venezuelan waters?
Right, correct. Yes, it was there to get Venezuelan oil, but there's not any clarity on who actually owns the ship, right? Yeah. So that's what it was there to do, which, of course, they're going to sell oil to whoever pulls up, right? They don't care. Sanctions, schmanctions. I don't know how you say sanctions and sancciones in Spanish because they don't care.
So this could turn out to be just another one of those footnotes in history of like, we did this too. At the end of the administration.
Yeah, I think if the conflict continues, it'll be seen as some ratcheting up, right? Yeah. But I don't think that there's going to be it's not going to change the situation on the ground in Venezuela as far as what we're trying to achieve from a pressure perspective or Maduro's power or any of that stuff. It's negligible, you know. So.
Wow, because it seems like this would have an international uproar to it,
Yeah.
you know. But again, like I've been saying, like there should have been some international uproar for other things that have been going on.
So I heard a pundit, and I'm just repeating what a pundit said here, but she said, honestly, blowing up the drug boats is way more offensive to the international law concept than seizing this tanker.
Yeah.
The tanker has legal backing behind doing an operation like this.
Right.
Blowing up boats that you have not really fully identified does not. Right. And so that's more of a threat.
So on that, the stuff that happened on September 2nd, we
double tap.
We hit a boat. It sat there in the water for an hour, and we swang back around and hit it again. There's articles of impeachment being, I don't know if they're drafted or they're finished, being drafted for Secretary Hegseth. But like you say, getting actually to the floor is another thing.
Yeah.
What are the chances of any of this stuff sticking to, like, these illegal actions? Like, what's the chances of it sticking? Like, because if the House can't do anything about it while, the Republicans are in charge.
Yeah, I see this as one of the most glaring proofs that checks and balances are not in place right now, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I see here, is that even people in the Republican Party feel like there was probably some kind of criminal situation of going back around and blowing the boat up again, right? Or that if nothing else, it's just bad. It's just bad news, even if it wasn't criminal.
It's bad optics.
Yeah. And so when you got your own team saying, like, I think this might have been wrong.
This is a line.
What it comes down to is he serves at the pleasure of the president, and the president is the only person, that can turn on Secretary Hegseth and say, you don't have this job anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. This is the proof that any other lever that might have existed in government to keep our most senior people beholden to their oaths and to the rules that we put in place that they agreed to follow, that would have happened already in other situations. So that I don't see it going anywhere in the near term, and until Trump, as Trump does, he'll burn you down. The day you aren't part of the puzzle anymore, obliterates you, right? Yeah. And so, man, that Pete may have a really, really bad day coming in the future, and who knows what will cause it, right? Like that's the problem. Is as the subordinate, which Pete is subordinate to Trump. You say, well, I got away with this, so this thing's nowhere near as upsetting as that. It can't be the thing that ruins my career. Yeah. No, that's not how it works in Trump's world, right? It could be something that's like, Pete put his left shoe on his right foot and went to work. Yeah. And somebody took a picture and Trump's like, you're fired. Yeah.
It could be something as simple as, they start talking about the line of secession. Sure. And they're like, who's going to take over, after Trump and things like that. Well, Hegseth's been doing a good job.
Yeah, right.
That's it. Even getting that,
you take any shine off of his, golden plates,
right. And his spray paint
out, out, like with the trash, feeds you to the raccoon.
Yeah,
out. And so that's going to happen.
Eventually,
like, secretary gets 4 years in the seat with Trump, right?
History has shown.
So when it goes down bad, right? And we just don't know what the goes down bad is going to look like here.
Well, I think another good vein, with this argument or with this conversation, is what's going on with Senator Kelly. Mm-hmm. He put out that video to talking about don't follow.
The seditious six is the new catchphrase over on the right side, just so you know. He's one of the seditious six.
No. I can't even say that. Because the way that they manipulate words and downplay January 6th, the insurrection.
Yeah.
And then say something like
visitors to a national park, right?
Yeah, this is a LOAC briefing. We got these every year at least, and when you went downrange, you got specific ones where people told you don't.
These are the rules of engagement and how they relate to the law of armed conflict.
And this is the problem with having troops in our cities, not under a named mission.
Law of armed conflict can't apply.
They haven't been told don't do bad things.
Yeah. And just bottom line, LOAC is inherently not applicable inside your own borders because you're not in armed conflict. If you're not in the Civil War, LOAC doesn't apply, like, so it doesn't, there's no way to even give them a set of orders, right? Like, don't do anything is the
yeah. So they're threatening to bring Colonel Kelly back into uniform and bring him back just to court martial.
Yeah.
Which I think
he was a Navy captain, so I'm gonna.
Yes, 06.
Yeah.
Captain.
You call him Colonel at your Air
did,
Force, and I'm sure he would be sad if you said that.
Yep,
so.
that'd be a kick.
I'm not upset about it, but I don't know. Give the Navy their weird rank props. You know?
Like they just got to be different.
They do, because they're old timey, man. The Navy predates us, like the United States, right?
But
so that's
even like their normal, like every job has its own rank, and
sure.
Like it gets so
cryptographer first class, blah blah blah.
Right?
Like,
so
what is that?
Yeah. I digress.
All right, so we gave Navy props, and then we just ripped them up for twice as long as we said nice things.
Good. As long as the world
Navy people on the
as long as the world's balanced.
So Kelly might come back. Yeah.
So if they do that, I was on another call yesterday. People are really concerned about that. The officers. I retired as a senior NCO.
Yeah.
So I don't have a commission and things like that.
Sure.
So they can't pull me back.
Sure.
They can do other things. Screw with benefits and I'm sure they can find a way to strip my birthright for citizenship's coming up. But with officers, when you don't really retire,
right? You
don't give up that commission.
Yeah.
Do you speak much about that, like in training and things like that?
No.
Has it even come up where
there's always, I guess there is at different times there is a reminder that your commission is for life and that your oath is for life, and there is something that you read or sign when you retire that reminds you of that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And really, let's think about it not just from the U.S. perspective, but from other parts of the world.
Yeah.
It's not unheard of for a retired general during a coup to throw that uniform back on and then become the president.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Right, yeah.
And so there's risk for your really senior retired officers.
Yeah.
They had a lot of political power.
Oh, yeah.
They have a followership, right? And in the Army, I'll just talk about the Army for a minute here. When you are in here at Fort Carson, you got the 4th Infantry Division. Mm-hmm. That division commander, sometimes those folks get titles associated with them of this their walk on water, Jesus figures, right? Yeah. And they're 2-star generals or whatever, right? Yeah. And so then you hear a service member talking about, I worked with General so-and-so.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that person.
Yeah.
And then when I say that, they're like, you've never heard of Jesus Christ? That's right. Their reaction.
Yeah, that's how people felt about General Matters.
Yeah, and so that person can have a lot of political influence without their uniform on. Mm-hmm. And so that's where that kind of rule comes from, right?
Yeah.
Now you got a senator and, you got some officer mix-up tangling in that and free speech,
it's a thing.
In there. Put that sandwich layer in there in the dagwood, Right. So it's a mess,
And at the end of the day, did they say anything illegal or unbecoming an officer? What would the charge be?
Right. And so there you go. I think the takeaway that I would look at is you have to have a convening authority to call him back, right? A general officer. I would believe that the secretary actually does not have the UCMJ authority to do this. You need to have a general officer directed by the secretary to basically do a grand jury indictment and say, can there be charges for any of these activities that the secretary has laid out and asked me to review? And then that general officer's decision about whether or not any of these things were illegal is kind of the deal, right? Yeah. And there's no way around that, really. If you want to do the UCMJ piece or you want to charge him as an officer doing something wrong, Pam Bondi can't do that. Yeah. It has to be a general to do that, right? So,
to set that precedent of to have a board, because like you said, it'd be like a grand jury where there's a board of officers, his peers, so not just anybody.
It'd probably be 3 officers that are all 06 or higher.
For them to set a precedent that when they retire, if they mouth off, you get pulled back too. So,
for sure.
There's a lot of layers to that.
There is, there's that cultural piece of closing ranks. What do you want me to do now? You want me to reevaluate whether this person's first First Amendment rights are intact, like,
Yeah.
I don't feel comfortable with that.
Yeah, that sounds like a you problem.
Yeah. And, I can resign right now if you need me to, right? Because I'm a general. I've been in forever, So if you just need me to walk out of here and turn in resignation papers like that, we can do that, And I wouldn't doubt that there's some of that going on right now, right? Like, that there are people that are avoiding sticky situations and just retiring, right? So,
I still haven't heard if the admiral that retired from Southern Command talked to Congress this week. Did you hear anything on that?
No.
I
watch the news every day and didn't see anything about that.
Well, and it's one of those things where we get buried with so much stuff every day. You know, just yesterday doing this oil tanker, and it's interesting that you say that it's not that big of a deal, or like. It's not as illegal as people make it out to be.
Right.
Like it's not an act of war.
Correct.
Things like that, like people have made it out to be. But then, this guy hasn't been seen in front of Congress yet. The feds dropped the rates again yesterday. So there's things going on. And the federal chairman said that it's the tariffs causing it too. Did you hear that part of his speech? Yeah, he actually put the blame on the tariffs for all the rising costs and everything. Yeah. And that's,
Jerome Powell, you're saying?
Yeah, Jerome Powell said that.
Yeah, that's his job to say what's happening and why, right? And report the facts, not the, political version of the facts.
Yeah. But now that, the Supreme Court...
Which is, I guess, why Trump has hated him since, the beginning of this term.
Because, he's not really appointed by the president.
Right.
But the Supreme Court just gave Trump the right to fire the head of the FTC, I think, the Federal Trade Commission. Yeah. So I think he's going to keep going after Powell, keep kind of expanding that power to, get as much reach as he can.
Yeah.
Because, that's what authoritarians do.
Yeah. Well, and, I think when Kennedy shows up and gets rid of all the vaccine doctors and starts putting out, crazy stuff from the official pulpit, people are concerned about it, and people are like, oh, this is messed up, and I can't believe this is happening to the government, but we'll accept it. We'll tolerate it. We'll be like, okay, a few years from now, we'll get back to normalcy. But if you're doing it with money, if you're trying to do that same thing with money, with the economy, right, people are like, there's no room for tolerance on just making stuff up and saying, this is the official story now on the economy side of the house.
Right. Which is
people don't buy that.
Because, with the RFK thing, there's measles outbreaks going on in South Carolina. I see pictures of kids.
We literally are tolerating it. Right?
Yeah, people are just okay with it. And they just came out with a new vaccine schedule, to, reduce the amount of vaccines and I think spread the timeline out and things like that. And this is all being driven by a guy that has said that he has no medical experience and shouldn't be listened to for advice. While he's been the sitting secretary, he said, I'm not a medical expert.
Doctor. Yeah.
And his wife has said, well, he doesn't need to be an expert in this.
Yeah.
Then why is he sitting there no, we are all looking to that position for medical advice and, guidance. Or
to, at the very least, promote the most qualified person's findings, right?
Not the top Google search.
Yes, and so neither one of those things are happening, right? Not only do you not have a medical leader in the position, which can be forgiven, but that person who's not a medical leader is not using medical leaders to actually promote the message that they would need to promote.
And just to actually tear it down and just set us back.
But if you try to do that with people's money, right? That's where Jerome Powell is like, I am in one of the most... it's kind of like Manchin. When Manchin became the superhero of the Senate, right? that was an accident, right? That there ended up being two senators, him and Sinema, that were just the darlings of the ball, and everything had to go through them. Yeah. And it's proved that the Senate is kind of a strange beast sometimes, right? Well, we've got that same kind of situation going on here with Jerome Powell, where it's the chair of the Fed, most people don't care, never listen to it. If they're not investment bankers, they just don't care, right? The whole Fed thing doesn't even make sense to the average person, right? Yeah. And now he's Manchin, he's holding the whole thing hostage and going I'm going to say this. Yeah. It's going to be true, and we're going to see what happens, right? He feels untouchable, right? And I don't know, it's an interesting perspective when you find out where the real seats of power are when weird stuff starts going on, right?
Yeah, and it's kind of indirect contradiction, what he said. Not even indirect contradiction. adjacent to what Trump said about the rising prices, because Trump just recently said that people just got to get used to it. And like they got to make some sacrifices this Christmas and things like that. We came out of Black Friday and people were touting record amounts sold. And like that, or record amount
economic
revenue.
activity. Huh?
Right. But they didn't look at the numbers deep enough to say, well,
they're inflated numbers.
The numbers of items actually dropped.
Yes, but they cost more per item. That's what I'm saying.
So 7% cost increase made up for that drop in numbers.
Yeah.
Enough to
offset.
Show profit.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I get that completely. For sure.
And Trump just says, "Well, that's it."
Yeah.
This is America being great again.
He, the farmers. You've talked about the farmers and food not getting off the ground. Basically, the harvest just not being sold, right? And so that happened this year. $12 billion farm aid package in response to this, but the loss by the farm industry was 80 billion, I think 70 to 80 billion in lost sales of just there's commodities rotting on the ground.
Yeah.
And his answer to the problem that he created was, here's 1/5 of the damages.
Right.
And I'm your hero.
Yeah. Here's enough to pay some bills. But at the end of the day, or at the beginning of the day, I guess, when those crops rotting, those are people starving also.
Sure.
Like all that money that went into USAID and things like that, or that got pulled out for them to pay the farmers to get the crops to go feed people. Like, not only have we let our farmers down with these rotting crops, there's people that were counting
needed to eat that food.
Yeah. So
they're not growing the food just to look at it.
So that $2 billion goes back to the farmers to again pay bills on tractors, rent on farms, things like that, whatever, pay their folks. But then there's the other half of the equation too, where people are probably dying.
Yeah, very true. And it was all manufactured, right? It was all created, on purpose,
right? Because the money was already there, and it was pulled back.
Money. Well, and I mean, just the interference in the whole cycle, right?
Yeah.
Like, they broke the cycle completely, is what we're saying, right? The people aren't eating the food. The farmers aren't selling the food, right? The money's not getting put into the right inject points within the cycle to keep it going, right? So we just artificially pumped some money into one of those inject points. Yeah. That's not going to fix the cycle.
No, because
you broke it.
What happens next year? Farmers aren't going to.
That's what I'm saying.
Farmers aren't planting.
They're going to grow different stuff. Something's going to happen, right? You broke it. It doesn't just turn back on next year, right? Yeah. And if you took the tariffs away, it might take a whole nother growing season for any of that stuff to average back out, right?
Yeah.
So even if you just said, "Oops, that was a bad idea. We'll just back everything off," it would still be 12 to 18 months before the farms could normalize and understand what the market looks like. You see what I'm saying? It's a huge ripple effect. It's not one growing season. Yeah. So, and of course, now we talk about, I hate to admit when some of these things happen, because I want to believe in my libertarian mind that this just doesn't happen. But then sometimes you see it right at face value. Corporate farming in America, we're on this topic of big multi-state operations where they've just grown the same commodity in 6 different places, and they just have a formula of exactly how to grow it, right? Yeah. And they've got hundreds of thousands of acres, right? Yeah. So I'm not against that from an efficiency perspective or a production perspective. There's probably some goodness in there that we're all benefiting from in some way.
Okay.
But ruin the farm industry for a couple of years. People want to sell their farm. Who buys the farm?
Oh, those corporations.
Corporations.
Yeah,
And corporations get to buy the farm at a depreciated value because the revenue's down. The market's unstable.
Yeah.
You got to get out of here. You need to make your nut and move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Here's $500,000 for something that's worth $4 million, right? And will that get you out the door? Okay, cool. And then next year we turn it on and grow $10 million worth of crops out here. You know what I'm saying?
So, we saw it with...
And we can handle a bad year, right?
Yeah.
We can eat that. We can put it in silos and just sit on it. We're not going to go out of business if that happens, right?
And we saw it a lot with, these corporate takeovers when it comes to the wildfires that, go through Malibu, Hawaii, and then California, things like that. The corporations just wait for that depreciation and just come through, and they can just buy it. And that's why, so much of our property now is just all corporate,
elevated in price because
everything's
it's artificial.
Bought up, so
markets get rigged artificially by the going rate of whatever. But when you got 3 or 4 major buyers, then they can all just agree what the going rate is,
And that's what always kind of frustrates me with people getting all tied up in like the stock market and where it's at and things like that. How much impact does it really have on the average person's day-to-day life? It doesn't. Like people who are living paycheck to paycheck should not care about the stock market and things like that. But again, it's one of those things that the media inflates and gets everybody, worked up over. And just, we need to be focused more locally.
But I will say I'm willing to admit every now and then, and I guess I'm not willing to admit conspiracy, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not willing to admit that somewhere 2 years ago, 3 years ago, there was corporate farming interests that showed up and lobbied, the Trump administration to say like, hey, boom and bust. Do this so that we can get into this cycle and steal something, right? Yeah. Like, I'm not saying that shady backroom conversation happened, right? Some people would believe that it happens all the time, every day. That's what Mar-a-Lago is, right? Like, but so if I'm willing to get away from the conspiracy, I'm still willing to acknowledge the process that we can just look straight at and see that it's happening. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, I won't put my head in the sand. I might not attribute it to just pure evil. Well, I mean, the process is happening, and I think we would almost all agree that they can't be good. Right.
And people that are in those positions have to be seeing that too, and be the ones that could put the brakes on.
Sure.
But they all...
I don't think you get to that position by wanting to put the brakes on.
Exactly.
Right? Like, that's how you get there. It's like grease on the wheel.
It's all kind of wanted at this point.
Yeah.
And
so if that's conspiratorial in nature, I mean, it's not... If it's a public, it can't be a conspiracy. Let's say that, right? You have to be hiding what you're doing for it to be conspired, right?
Well, you have to hire the why and the intent behind what you're doing, like what you're doing, and you can do it right out. It's the Machiavellian approach. Where you're kind of just working both sides of everything.
Yes.
So you say one thing up front, but clearly,
you're just trying to figure out how you're actually going to cash in on that later on. And so I guess that's what I'm saying is if it's a conspiracy, they're not hiding it, right? Because we could all just see it happening.
Well, and when we talked, we look at the checklist of like how authoritarians rise and things like that, and attacking the media, like it's like a checklist for them. They're not hiding anything at this point.
No,
but like I don't think there's, when you have a Trump 2028
corner
in the White
House,
like you clearly plan on doing something unconstitutional.
This was at a rally this week. I saw it on so many different news channels, right, or different things talking about this rally. He went to Pennsylvania, I think, and Poconos. He went to the Poconos, Mount Pocono, right? Okay. And he was doing basically a campaign rally about affordability. And more than once, they talked about 4 more years and 2028, and the crowd literally chanted, 4 more years. 4 more years, and he was just standing up there doing his thing, glowing in the sun, just like, they love me, I'm in a room full of people that think I'm the best human that's ever walked the earth, that happened this week,
I was talking with a Republican friend recently, and making light of that. And because, again, it's a constitutional crisis. There's no way they're going to amend the Constitution in time for that to happen.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
There's no way in hell.
Not legally.
Exactly. You 3/4 to ratify that.
And the states all have to ratify it as well. It's not just in the legislatures. Yeah. Then it has to be a national vote.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So it's impossible in this time frame, in this environment.
Yeah.
And the person I was talking to made a comment like that. Well, they're going to get acrobatic with the Constitution, and so they're just going to shit on it.
Looking for imaginary loopholes and precedents that don't mean anything, to try and wave them around and be like, "This is why this is legal." Yeah, that's where conspiratorial thinking gets ginned up. Is in those let's go dig through this old court case and figure out how no one ever figured this out before, but we're the smartest people in the world, and we read this thing and it says this is legal.
From 1798.
I cannot. That just blows me away. When we were at war with these pirates that one time, they never ended the war compact from that. So technically, the president can blow up boats. Like, for real, people do that. You know, in 1802, it's the president can blow up anything he wants. You know,
and they're at the ground level. Like, it's crazy the talking points that you really get out of people when you press them for, you know, a 2028 Trump hat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that was the comment that kind of started. She said she had a 28 hat.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's constitutionally disgusting.
Sure.
And they're like, oh, yeah, we're going to get, you know, acrobatic, or I can't remember the word she used.
Yeah,
but
creative.
But, adjacent. Constitutionally adjacent.
Yeah.
You know. But... Yeah, so that's all we got for this week. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Left Face. Again, my name is Adam Gillard with Dick Wilkinson. Tune in next week. We'll see you then.
Thanks, everybody.